Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Xoogler Fireside chat with Eitan here. Eitan leads recruiting over at Applied Intuition, and we've had this session before last year, and he'll share more about how Applied has really grown since the last time we did this. And given the state of the tech hiring and market these days, we thought we'll have another session with Eitan, have him talk more about Applied Intuition, have him share more about the roles that they are currently hiring for on their website. They have over 100 roles, not only in the US, but also in Germany, Sweden, Korea, and Japan that they are hiring for. So I want to make sure he shares more about those opportunities and give all of you the chance to really ask him questions that he'll be able to answer through this discussion. Quite a few of you already have submitted some questions, and we'll go through those to kickstart it. But as a quick introduction, Eitan graduated sort of a local boy in Santa Cruz. He was also an officer candidate in the U.S. Marine Corps. Thank you for the work that you wanted to serve the country. We just had the Veterans Day this weekend, so thank you, Eitan. Following that, he worked as a practice manager in motion recruitment. Then he was actually at Google for over 3 years. And he followed, I guess, a couple of ex-Googlers to Applied Intuition, both Casa Yunus as well as Peter Ludwig, the co-founders of Applied Intuition, both worked on the Google Maps team. And from there, they've been building this company that is doing extremely well. I'm sure you will read about how some larger companies and larger tech startups aren't doing as well these days, but Applied Intuition is. They're still hiring over 100 people, and that's why we're having this discussion. And so, Eitan, thanks for giving back to the community, but also sharing more about what Applied Intuition is looking for during these times. Thank you for joining us today, Eitan.
Yeah, thanks for having me as always, Chris. Thanks for making me feel wanted and useful. I don't get to experience that as often anymore as this business is growing and we hire a lot more people who are a lot more competent than I am.
Great. Maybe for people who don't know much about Applied Intuition, let's just start there. For what is Applied Intuition and what do they do?
So we're a software company. Fundamentally, we build different types of software products that we sell to usually big enterprise buyers in industries that are either emerging or evolving. This makes for kind of, if I canvas the whole landscape of potential buyers and users of our products, this makes for industries ranging all the way from autonomy, where you have different people building stuff that moves on its own, and use case of autonomy ranging from like off-road ground systems, robotics and ag, construction, mining use cases, different robotics that move in warehouses. Obviously, on-road self-driving is a massively funded space here in Silicon Valley. So we have customers ranging all the way from the venture-backed autonomy companies to that you're probably all very familiar with, to customers in massive consumer automotive all around the globe. So US OEMs as well as global OEMs. And then we also do other types of products that fit into that category of industries that are very used to buying hardware and recognize that the future of that industry is actually software. Those industries are waking up to the need of having very good software. They're not very good at buying software quite yet, and they don't really have the partners that are very good at building the type of software that they need. So we're able to partner with them and help them see that platform shift from mechanical to software. This ranges all the way from gov to automotive and many other types of industries where we're seeing that platform shift happen. So at the high level, that's what we do. We're a software company that supports industries that are historically moving from very hardware or mechanical oriented use cases and features, feature requirements into a world where software is a primary thing that needs to be built and sold.
Awesome. Thank you. And perhaps even before we go deeper into some of the questions that have been submitted, talk about your own journey. How did you decide to join Applied Intuition, and what were they doing then, and how has it developed to what they're doing now?
So I was at Google, like many people in this meeting, and like many people at Applied. Google was a phenomenal place to work. I still have very fond memories of riding my Google bike to the pancake bar on the main campus and having my custom blueberry pancakes. And all the perks and the fireworks aside, I mean, really smart people, easily one of the best, if not the best, software companies in the history of software companies. So I figured out a lot of really unique things that have to do with building stuff that the world actually uses, and that stuff is usable and built really well. The quality of systems internally is unlike anything that I've seen in the past. And that level of polish, I think, really stayed with me in everything that I've done since. I think the Google reference point has been a really strong reference point to have. But while I was at Google enjoying those blueberry pancakes, I also started to get used to other parts of very big corporate America that I felt to be a bit suffocating, like a very linear, predictable trajectory of no matter how hard I tried to do something that's exceptional and get something that's maybe a little bit out of the standard norm of 6, 12 year, 18-month perf cycles, I'd be stuck in the system. And I mean, I don't think there's any wrong or right with that. I was just in a particular stage in life where I wanted something a bit, less linear and more nonlinear. And the way that you get that is by joining something early that you have an actual stake in. You get to impact that stake with your own work. And as much as I think my work at Google was great, I don't think at any point that I directly impacted the ticker price of Google. I mean, the stock would have traded where it's at with or without me. And I really wanted to close that feedback loop by going to something smaller. So I was out on a very intentional search for something very promising and very early. And I suppose through luck and skill, mostly luck, I got connected to the folks here at Applied. I remember my first walk with Kasser, our CEO, who is also a Xoogler. I spent a good amount of time at Google doing some really cool stuff. And we went around this really long walk in Sunnyvale, the Manhattan of South Bay is what we like to call it. And I was just really stricken by how ambitious, competent, and professional this person was. And professional as in like he was very clearly on a mission that he knew he can execute on. And I thought, worst case scenario, I join this thing and I get to work with this guy for 9, 10 months and it implodes, and it's a phenomenal learning experience. It's a lot more than I would have gone to Google. Best case scenario, this could be life-changing. And going into it, I thought like the most likely outcome would be somewhere in between. And every 6 months, I continued to just be surprised by how much success we've had as a company. So I joined looking for growth, and I think so far I've gotten the growth that I wanted. When I ended up deciding to join, I think the obvious things that I made the decision on still stay true today. Like the business is exceptionally strong. Like if you look at the entire autonomy ecosystem, most companies are operating really as a well-funded research program, in that there's just a lot of venture capital that's being utilized to run interesting experiments with this technology that maybe one day could be monetized. But very few companies are actually dealing with customers and building stuff that's being paid for over and over and over again. So the business fundamentals are there. The strength of the team stood out day one. It was not just Kasser who was ex-Google, it was most of the team, and that was done intentionally. And today is still the case, where a big part of the team is ex-Google. We're a software company building around the principles of the best software company in the world. And I knew that if the early team is very strong, it'll help us hire more people that sort of fit that standard. And just lastly, the ability to just make a personal impact. I do think that still today, people who are joining have a direct line to the customer and to the code base and everything else that we're doing, where they can actually build something that's being used and build something that could actually materially impact the value of this company one day and change the world in a real way. So all those things were true when I joined, and I think they're very true today.
Cool. Thank you. And for those who maybe listen to this in Europe and other weirder time zones that aren't joining, can you share more about the different offices you have, and what do they cover, and what are you hiring for, and what do they actually do compared to the Sunnyvale, the Manhattan or South Bay office does?
South Bay. So we have the office here in Manhattan. We're an international company, truly a global company. What that means is that we have offices really in every major automotive hub in the world, and many of these business hubs in the world. Headquarters are here in Mountain View. A software company, we thought that, you have to do it right, and being headquartered in the capital of software in the world. So I think the roots will always be based out of Silicon Valley, where headquarters is, and the majority of our product engineering function is based out of. We also have offices that work closely with our customers, distributed globally in any major hub where you'd probably see customers that use our products. This can include the automotive industry, where we have offices in Munich, Tokyo, Seoul, Stockholm, obviously Detroit. So any place where you have any major automakers, we work with those automakers, and we have local offices to better support the customers. We also have a pretty substantial relationship with the U.S. government. So we have offices in DC where we do some gov work, and then there are other smaller areas where we don't have formal offices, but we have some engagement. So we have some people distributed in those places, but still quite small, so I wouldn't call them an official office yet.
Great, thank you. So can you share more about the in-office culture versus working from home? What is it like? What has it been like bringing people back after COVID, and what's the policy over there?
Yeah, I think working in the office has become somewhat of a contrarian thing to do in the past few years. And, when I started my career, that seemed like it was the norm. At Applied, it's always been the norm. So we haven't really had to deal with some of the internal struggles that come with going remote to back in office, and the divvy you may have created in the culture. We have people who have been hired with two different assumptions of what the relationship with work and in-office expectations would look like. But externally, the pressure definitely is there. Obviously, the post-COVID world looks very different. And I think many companies can operate really well remotely, and it's been proving. There are some public companies today that are fully remote that are performing really well. But I think that the truth is that for our business, the core advantage that we have today as a startup, as a smaller company, is we can just move much faster than any other very big company that has thousands more employees than we do and billions of dollars more of resources to deploy, and people who are probably just as smart as our team, if not smarter. Yet we can win because we are able to move fast. And as much as we can lean into that strength, we should. Being in the office allows us to do that, all the way down to some of the ways that you can kind of operationalize your day. Like, for example, let's say we are a team of 30 people here on the recruiting team. And we have 5 people who are working from home every Wednesday, and we want to do a team-wide thing. Then we either have to play around the calendars to see when we can actually block a time that allows for the 5 people to join in remotely, or we'll say, well, these guys work from home on Wednesday, let's just punt this thing to Thursday morning when everyone's in the office. And then suddenly that conversation waits for 12 hours or 24 hours, and that leads to a cascading delay of other conversations. So I think that there is some advantage that we have being a startup that's in person. We can quickly turn the chair and talk to someone that you just can't really do when you're remote. And when we were doing COVID, obviously we were all remote, so we figured out a way to make it work, but it was a bit slower. The second advantage is we're a customer-facing business. Oftentimes, there's a lot of customers in our offices, and we're actively supporting our customers. So having people around makes it very easy for us to quickly pull someone into a customer meeting when needed, or quickly do a debrief or a pre-brief. That is a massive edge that we would not have had if we were remote or hybrid. So that's a policy that's quite a controversial policy. But I recognize nowadays we think that this is one of the biggest things that we do differently today that's actually working. And I think what's allowed us to do it well is that we've held a pretty firm line on this. We communicated very upfrontly to every person that interviews with us, all the way from the moment people apply in the job posting. And if it's not for someone, then they can decide to filter themselves out. But at the end of the day, when people make the decision to join Applied, they know that this is an office company. Even when people join remotely, they knew it was an office company. So when it was time to go back into the office, no one was surprised, and we didn't experience some of the the kind of the tidal waves that can come with I guess the cultural tidal waves that can come with different people wanting different things from in office or remote.
Thank you for sharing that. And I guess related to that, Eitan, can you talk about any visa sponsorships that you may do, whether it's for technical roles, non-technical roles for the US, but even for your other locations that you also have offices?
An international company, we obviously recognize the value of hiring a very strong international team. Visa sponsorships are not a problem. We handle every major or even minor case. We will pursue top talent relentlessly, all the way to doing the most difficult visa gymnastics you have to do to get a particular exceptional visa that needs to get approved to get someone in here. So visa is a non-issue and has always been, and today still is, and I think always will be for us.
No, it's great, and also clearly knowing that your CEO comes from an immigrant family himself. That's always shows that they will follow through, right? So, let's talk about the types of hires you're looking for. I'm not going to ask you to go through your jobs portal, but can you talk more about the types of hiring and categories of jobs that you're actively looking for to hire these days, and share more about it?
So the company is majority product and engineering. This is by design, and I think will always be the case. That's not going to change, as in we'll always continue to be mostly product and engineering. So the majority of the hiring that we do today is within product and eng. Product and eng ranges all the way from core software engineers building features. So feature engineering, it can mean customer engineering. So people who are distributed globally in different offices, working directly with customers, helping with integration, or helping support customers with other types of things. This could mean different types of technical specialists in engineering. We do a lot of stuff. Some of the stuff that we do is not directly posted on the website yet. The truth with most growth companies are successful is they must be working on something to help really propel that next phase of growth, and that's very true at Applied. So some of the things that we do today that are deeply specialized and difficult to do, you just can't really find them online, but you can find the jobs posted on the website. So that's where you'll see a lot of like deeply specialized technical positions, ranging from automotive to other types of specializations. And the other part of that is product. Product includes design. We're hiring product designers, interaction designers, visual designers, even web design. We're hiring engineering operations like technical program managers and other types of roles to help our engineering functions operate more efficiently. And then the smaller part of the company is commercial, and commercial is what I would put in the bucket of everything that's just not directly tied to building a product. So there's a lot of supportive functions ranging from people operations, where we have openings, recruiting, where I have plenty of openings that we're hiring for. And it was surprising to hear that the company is hiring recruiters in this economy, but we are. Finance, accounting, go-to-market, ranging all the way from sales to marketing, pretty much every major function. We're not hiring tons of salespeople, marketing people, or other types of supportive functions, because the business has never really been that. The DNA has always been product and engineering, so you'll still see the majority or the bulk of the hiring be product and engineering. And I think one of the questions was, what's my email? My email is my first name, Eitan, E-I-T-A-N, @applied.co.
Awesome. Thank you, Eitan. Given that the people operations team was hit just a few weeks ago at Google, and you were the people ops in Google, and you're now helping run people ops there, can you talk more and make sure this is shared with people who were let go a few weeks ago of people ops? What kind of roles you have? I see 3 listed, and also how does the people ops function differ from the people ops function at Google?
So I think my experience, I'm just going to talk about my experience, because I recognize that I got to see a really smart of Google being the worker ant that I was in the massive machine. So from my experience, the types of people operation work that was done at Google tend to be a lot more administrative and program oriented. Either you're managing a massive program and you're trying to really administer all these different things out into that program and get people to respond and do their work on time. The other part of it was you're just doing a lot of data entry type work, and Google is mostly using a lot of automation tools, but there is still a lot of data entry that has to go into these things to get automated. So that's what I saw at Google, and also any exposure that I have through friends or other associates that I have working on other bigger companies. At Applied, where I think what's unique is that you're still at the phase of the company where you recognize that one of the biggest risks, if not the biggest risk long term, is that the culture of the company starts to erode or change. So the people operations team has to focus on that one problem. How do we make sure that the biggest risk in the company doesn't actually occur? So a lot of the work that we do in people operations is deeply creative. Like, how do we what systems can we put in place, or what are the things that we can do that are not being done anywhere else in the world today that could perhaps be a pretty unique, like blank whiteboard type of solution for a company like us to do this one thing that we need to do to go from this stage of growth, this next stage of growth, without changing the bar, without changing the type of person that we hire, without changing the way that we execute as a company. So it just means a lot of fun stuff, like, room to run something very creative, try it out. Don't have to do like form submissions and approvals to try it out. Everyone cares deeply about culture and wants to help. You don't have to like wrangle and wrestle different people who have various different priorities to try to give you a time of the day to have a meeting with you. Like, everyone wants to get involved, and so that's the majority of the people operations work that gets done. And then obviously with that, and with all roles in a smaller company, you don't have 50 people focusing on small different things that kind of cancel out different workflows that will fit into a particular role. So that means that you still do many other things, including data entry and other admin stuff that needs to get done, because you don't have 50 people doing those things. It all falls into into one role, and that's true for most earlier stage startups, or I would hope is true for most startups that are being thoughtful with how they spend money, where you're not over hiring people to do small things that can probably be consolidated into one position.
Great. And so besides the compensation analyst and people ops generalist, are there specific roles in people operations people should apply for?
I think those are the primary two, and everything's listed on the website. And just know that we're hiring people from all ranges of experience and to all positions in the company, but especially people operations. So all the way from junior people operations to a senior people operations specialist. If you have background in that and you're interested, apply, and we review those resumes daily. I'm involved in the interviews for that myself, actually. So if you want to send me your resume, or just send me a DM or an email, I'm happy to talk to you directly.
I also see 2 openings for technical recruitment roles, both in Mountain View and in Germany too. Great. Yeah. Why don't we move on to something broader in terms of the process? Can you talk about what the interview process is like inside Applied Intuition and what people can expect?
We do a case-based interview process, which means that we build different types of case studies that we run with candidates that test their ability to do the job that we're hiring them to do. So instead of an interviewer asking you, tell me about a time where you did XYZ, or what's your experience doing this one thing, we'll say, here's a prompt of something that we want to accomplish. Let's go and build this thing together in the interview. And we expect some actual output. And this is where we can measure the work itself rather than measure the way that the person went about interviewing for that particular work, or interviewing to be able to portray that they can do that particular work. So for example, if it's a marketing hire, then by the end of the interview, we will actually have, or by the end of one of the interviews, we'll actually have a fully fleshed out go-to-market strategy for a brand new product or something like that. And then we have this doc. We can go and compare this doc to the docs that were produced by other candidates, and we can make a decision that's entirely output oriented and not focused on how good someone is at interviewing or any other types of biases that tend to come up when people are doing interviews. So that's consistent across all positions of the company. And then as you continue to talk to Applied, you'll also meet more people for conversations that are less technical, but more oriented towards like how you make decisions, how your views on business and what you want from your career really fit in with what the stage of the company that we're at today and where we're going next. So that's just more of the intangible stuff.
Great, thank you. Why don't we open up to audience questions, since it's a group which can ask their specific needs and the questions that they have. Can you touch on the automotive lead position by Awasi?
Yeah, so we're hiring for a number of these lead positions, and lead at Applied, I just want to make sure that I underline this. As a company, we're non-hierarchical. We're very allergic to very big titles. There are many different reasons for those, and I can talk to those separately if any of you are curious. But anytime we put a lead position, it means this is a very, very, very senior position. So the scope is quite large. By large scope, for this particular role, we mean someone that in any other company could be a general manager, oftentimes maybe a chief strategy officer, a chief operation officer, or even sometimes a CEO, depending on the type of company it is. And I think there are some limits to how much they can actually share broadly, because a lot of the stuff that we're doing, especially in those couple of domains, is stuff that we just don't talk about at all publicly. But once people are interviewing and they sign an NDA, then at that point, we're happy to divulge a little bit more about like what exactly this person will be managing and why that's important to the business. But the short version of the answer is very, very, very important. Like this is the future of the company, and a pretty big, impactful role for anyone who takes it.
And Eitan, what's the equivalent of that at Google? Is it a director level? Is it a group product manager, just so that people are aware, or could it actually be a product manager depending on what they're working on inside Google or Waymo?
So we don't do levels at Applied, so it's hard to map this to an external level. If I'm thinking level at Google, maybe I'll just think about the rubric. And if I'm thinking about the rubric, this could be like a 7.5 or 8 at Google. That being said, we're allergic to levels for many different reasons. So I don't want to dissuade anyone who doesn't think that they're that level of experience from applying. We have a lot of people who are a lot less experienced in terms of total numbers of industry experience. And they're doing phenomenal work here at Applied, carrying roles that could easily map to a 7.5 or an 8 at a Google.
Amazing. Thank you for clarifying that, Eitan. Kim, did you unmute to ask a question earlier?
Are you talking to me, Chris? Yeah, I just posted it in the chat. I just wanted to know, Eitan, what's a typical size and the makeup in terms of roles that on a team that a designer would work on for you guys? Like, how big are they, and who's involved in those decisions and those projects?
So for the size of teams, this is just an answer that's broadly applicable to everyone. There's a phenomenal book about management, probably the best book ever written about management, by a guy named Andy Grove, who was the CEO of Intel. It's called High Output Management. In the book, he describes the optimal team size for any tech or any software business. The spoiler is that it's a team of 4 to 8. And I think at Applied consistently, you'll see teams of that size, 4 to 8. Basically, anything more than 8, it's very difficult for the manager to actually effectively people manage all the reports. Anything under 4, you start having Cs of first-line managers who are not managing enough ICs. I mean, and this is where some of the distribution starts to break, and you see companies thinking about other ways to get to efficiency, which is some of the unfortunate things we've seen in the market today with layoffs, etc. So
Google hasn't read that book.
Whoever it is that recommends books at Google, I would encourage them to recommend this book. As for the second part of the question, which was designers, our designers work with PMs, work with software engineers, work with customers, work with marketing sometimes if it's not directly like a product designer position, work with our CEO and our CTO. Cass, our CEO, has very strong opinions about design. He cares so much about design to the point that I think anytime we're working on a slide deck together, even sometimes internal slide decks, we'll spend maybe 30% of the time talking about 30 to 50% of the time talking about design. Design is a very important part of our engineering and our just the company in general, and it starts all the way from the top. And so if you're trying to get a sense of are there any inefficiencies, or like designers just kind of.
Again, I guess also as we're talking, I'm wondering how much of a voice the designers have, or do engineering and engineering limitations trump those design ideas? But it sounds like you're saying design is big.
The design is hugely important here at Applied, and it all starts with CASR. And you see that matriculation happen all the way from the top through every senior manager at the company. Even in my role, I have to think about, how clean something is and how it looks and the experience, the interaction that has when it goes to a candidate. One more interesting thing that we do as part of interview process is we send these really beautiful websites that we custom build for candidates when they're getting later stage in the interview process, and the thing is designed quite beautifully. We are all trained senior leads, managers, first line managers to really think about how that thing is being perceived. And I think this all comes down to our values. If you look at our website, apply.co/values, it's a hidden link. Value number 2, never disappoint the customer. And I think there is some truth to how much of the not disappointing the customer comes from very good design.
Great. Thanks for that answer, Eitan.
Thank you. Thanks, Kim. So Sony's asking, how big is your talent acquisition team?
We're roughly 30 today, I think, give or take. I think it's 30, it might be 29 or 30. I think it's 30. And
could you say the size of the company itself?
Company is, I would say I can't give the exact number, but I would say think the 400 to kind of 500 range, around there, give or take a little bit.
Cool. And Sharon's asking, do you currently have a CISO or head of security?
We do, yes. We have someone who is managing IT and security. He is very busy, and he is hiring for many roles. So I wouldn't, don't be afraid to apply. He's actively reviewing resumes himself because we don't have enough recruiting bandwidth to review those resumes for him. So if you apply, he's directly going to look at your resume.
Awesome. Hesham's asking, do software engineering position interviews involve live coding questions, take-home projects, or perhaps both?
Sometimes both. Usually it doesn't involve any take-home. Usually it's just live coding. If there is any relevant prep stuff out there for live coding, it's the usual lead code type exercises that you can do to get yourself ready. But it's all done over a shared ID and pretty standard coding interviews.
Cool. That's good.
Sure. Yeah,
Ruben, go for it.
Yeah. Hey, Ethan, thanks for that call and providing all the information. So can you tell me about the technical program manager interview process? I know you said the case study, is it same for all the roles, the case study interview round?
Yeah, we do case studies for every position at the company. That's something that my team personally audits, and I sometimes will have to click through them and make sure the cases are done right. So here and there are some exceptions because either it's a new role and someone's getting calibrated, a new manager, but it should all, at the end of the day, kind of fit that mold of us getting actual output from the interviews that we can review, rather than us reviewing some feedback that the interviewer has about how the candidate may have done in interviewing. So for the TPM role, they're absolutely case studies.
And what other rounds, or what is the other process for TPM roles other than the case study interview round?
So the entire interview panel is case studies. So usually we'll have 4 interviewers doing different cases on a technical panel for about 3.5 hours, something like that. And each one of the cases can range from 30 minutes to an hour, and we'll just do them back to back. For some roles, the cases will all fit into the same story. So we'll have a very big case, and then in each one of the 4 interviews, we'll just have you complete a different part of that story. So by the end of the 3.5 hours, there's a fully built out thing. And other roles will just have, the person is obviously doing many different things in the job. We want to test many different things. So we'll have many different types of cases that fit into that time block. So that's standard across all positions across the company.
Oh, okay. So that's that 3.5 hour or 4 hours interview is that's the only interview thing for the TPMs. Like you don't have anything like a system design or like a conventional program management type of interviews.
So we do, and the cases that we build usually give a signal on that, but it's not a typical system design. It's so yes and no is the answer. We'll get that signal, but we'll get that signal in a way that's different. Rather than just asking a like standard interview question, we'll just ask you to do something, and in the process of you doing that thing, we get signal on your ability to design a system or to build something or whatever it is that we're trying to test.
Oh, okay. Got it. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Sonu had submitted a question saying, as a recruiter, what do you think is the most challenging aspect to hire for at Applied Intuition?
Well, as I mentioned, we do some pretty conventional things. Like, not actually. There are a lot of things that we do are quite contrarian, like working in office. Having people come into the office every day is not normal. And if people have not been used to that, then that's a conversation that a recruiter needs to have with every candidate. And there are many other things that we do that are quite contrarian at the company. And to me, that's a very obvious one, being in office full time. And that makes it very difficult because not only is the bar very high, but you're hiring at this high bar within a concentrated area where many different people have many different relationships or expectations for the relationships with work. And your job as a recruiter is to take that very, very, very big funnel and thin it down to a point that you get the handful of people at every cycle, like every month or every quarter, that fit exactly what it is that we need at this particular phase of the business. So it's a lot of work, a lot of heavy lifting at the top that gets trimmed down to hopefully a very high quality type of output at the bottom.
Great. Eitan, maybe you can clarify for Sherwood. So these jobs are not fully remote or even partially remote?
We work full-time in office 5 days a week. So we don't have remote or hybrid types of work arrangements. That being said, we're also not a be seen type of a company. So it's not like we ask people to bring the time card in the morning and their manager stamps it, and and then they kind of hold it. It's and I'll point back to our values. Value 6 is probably my favorite value: be self-regulated. We trust our team to self-manage. We hire exceptional people who've gone this far in life without needing Big Brother to tell them what to do and how to get there. So we don't expect people to join Applied and suddenly need Applied to tell them how to do phenomenal work. The expectation that we have is that if you can be in the office, you should be in the office. Most people can be in the office almost every day, if not every day. They should be in the office when they can. If something comes up and you can't be in the office, don't come into the office. I have a kid, like many people have families that applied, and other types of applications that have them do stuff outside of the office whenever they need to do stuff outside the office. Totally fine. Your manager doesn't track where you are, and that means that people basically build a schedule that works for them. So people have to come in early, leave early, a lot of childcare drop off, pickup, etc., and other types of responsibilities. Totally fine. What we are allergic to, though, is fully remote or fully hybrid schedules. A fully remote schedule means that 2 people on the team or 3 people on the team work from home every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which means that we have to build the team's schedule around that, build a customer schedule around that. And the example that I talked to earlier, I know that, XYZ person on my team, it works from home and it's a Wednesday morning and I want to talk to them, and like, they work from home. This thing is not that important. I'm just going to wait and talk to them tomorrow. And then that's something that you just don't really think about when you go through that motion. But if it happens enough over and over and over again, then you just start to cause some delays in how you operate and things start to wait. And that's the biggest risk to our business today, and the biggest thing that we're trying to prevent. So the summary is that we work in office whenever people can be in the office. Most of the time it's 5 days a week. We're flexible if you have to do other things and not be in the office, totally fine. No one tracks and monitors how many hours you spend in the office. People self-regulate to this.
Thank you. Trisha is asking, how would you describe your DEI team and efforts?
So I have a couple of thoughts on this. Obviously, first of all, for someone that looks the way that I do, I have some very personal opinions on this as well. We don't have an official DEI team. I saw a DEI team at Google, and I'm very familiar that these DEI teams exist in other companies. The reason for why I personally never thought that they were effective is that they're fighting against something that's very, very, very difficult to undo. As in, you have companies that have made some pretty significant institutional decisions for a very, very long time, and that kind of debt is hard to repay with 5 or 10 or 15 or even 30 people doing 40 hours of work every week. So what ends up happening is those teams track progress against a very small goalpost that keeps moving, but in the grander scheme of things doesn't really affect the company in a material way. I think that the luxury that we have as being something that's quite early is that we don't have to figure out how do we repay 20 years of debt. Instead, we can build what we want to build from day one. And that's something that we've been able to do quite well at Applied. If you look at the leadership team, widely distributed, like I'm the senior leadership team, and there are many people in the senior leadership team that don't fit maybe the typical bucket of highly representative people in Silicon Valley. You alluded to our founders. And I think many people on the team, especially in senior leadership, are either immigrants or come from different backgrounds. And my role in recruiting, I can especially be aware of this, and something that I've been thinking about since I joined the company when it was 20-something people, that every person that we hire becomes a representative of this company. And if the people that we hire are not representative of the broader population in the world or in the US, and they're now working at Applied and representing the company, then selling the company is not representative either. So we've been very aware and intentional about this, and thankfully that's worked. So we're not in a position where we have lots of debt that we have to repay, which is why we don't need these big teams to try to fix something.
Thank you, Eitan, for sharing that. Sky had submitted for roles available. How do you get through the AI screeners if you do use AI screeners, and what are you looking for?
We don't use AI screeners, so you don't have to worry about that at Applied. Broadly, for other companies, I wish I could help. I don't know, but for Applied, we have recruiters or hiring managers looking at every person that applies.
So Rakesh is asking, all of your roles encourage people to apply, even if they don't meet every single requirement listed or if past experience doesn't align perfectly with every qualification. How do you apply this during your hiring process?
So we're hiring for positions at every level of experience, which is why when we post the job, we usually have a flat title, but we're hiring people with 0 years into that job up until entire careers. And this means senior leadership into very, very junior. So we intentionally try to keep the parameters very open, very wide when we post these jobs. And our recruiters are trained to look for excellence at every level of experience. So I don't think that there is a particular hack that I could give anyone for getting an interview because you're junior or mid-level or senior or whatever it is. I would just say that if you think that you meet the job requirement, like you think this is the right role for you and you want to work at a company like Applied, which is not for everyone, but is for some. And if you think that is for you, then apply, and the recruiters know what to look for and the managers know what to look for. Does that answer the question? It probably doesn't, but that's just truly how we think about hiring at different levels of experience at Applied.
Right. Rakesh, feel free to ask a follow-up if needed. Randeep's question is, what is your culture's position on neurodiverse hiring if there is deep competence and of using LLMs and other AI ML tools to improve communication and productivity at work?
I'm probably not the right person to answer this. My general thoughts are that we do everything that we can do to make this business phenomenal. If there are opportunities for us to use stuff like generative AI or LLMs to improve productivity in different places, then we are not opposed to exploring any of those things. Like, none of us have this toxic, almost allergic reaction to something like an LLM because of like a fad or a trend that would make us overlook it as a potential opportunity to make this business better or help customers more or support our culture in a different way. I personally haven't seen anything in our world of recruiting today that could be truly improved by an LLM. Maybe I haven't seen the right LLMs yet. So if anyone has anything that's interesting they'd like to show us, then I'm happy to take a look at it. Anything outside of recruiting, you should probably ask people who are much smarter than I am about that.
Awesome. We can get some Xooglers to pitch you their LLM products in the recruitment, Eitan.
Yes, sure.
So feel free to keep submitting your questions here.
Hey, Chris, I had a quick live question. That's okay.
Go for it.
Hi, Dan. Thanks a lot for speaking today. My name is Swarnish. I worked at Google from 2006 to 2021. So
Wow.
started in India and most recently in Mountain View. I kind of had a related question to what Rakesh had asked. I was wondering specifically around how do you evaluate for some roles? I'm looking at roles, something like my background is in strategy across sales, product marketing as well. So how do you evaluate some like roles based on a generalist versus a specialist? Because a lot of roles, even if you think of product manager or product marketing manager, there's a significant overlap. So I'm just curious at AI, how are you thinking about that? And is there an ethos or and how do you evaluate a generalist versus a specialist?
So my thoughts on this are only mine. I'd like to think that they're consistent across the entire company with every first-line manager or senior manager, but the truth is that they're probably not. So these are just my thoughts. But at some point, my thoughts on this will probably reach that manager if we need to have a conversation about a particular candidate. So this is probably a relevant answer. To me, a specialist is a person who we cannot coach in the company or externally without the kind of experience to do the work that they're hired to do. And a generalist is everyone else who doesn't fit that category. So oftentimes in the world of recruiting, we have to, let's say we have a couple hundred positions we have to fill, and we can't have a couple hundred recruiters spending 50 hours, 60 hours, 40 hours a week doing one particular search for one particular position. So you open generalist talent pools for people that we think are very competent, that can learn on the job, that are excited about startups, that we can bring in to apply it, and any gaps in their experience can probably be trained. And a part of the excitement for people to come into the company is that they recognize that this company would teach them to do something or give them access to something that they otherwise would not get access to at bigger companies because of all the layers of approval and bureaucracy that you have to go through to get through like a role transfer and this request and that approval. So the generalist opportunity applied allows you to access different types of specialized work streams in other companies that otherwise you would not be able to access. A truly specialized role, we recognize we don't have the ability to teach someone how to do, and we don't think someone can teach themselves how to do it within a reasonable period of time. Reasonable period of time, 6 months, maybe 9 months, depending on a customer. Like if a customer needs something today and we absolutely know that we can't afford to have someone learning how to do that on the job, then that's a true specialized hire. I think that today still the majority of our roles at the company are generalist hires. So even if you see something that's written to be specialized, but you don't have that particular specialized experience, you should apply, because the recruiter and the hiring manager would ask themselves, can I teach this person who seems very competent to do this one thing that is missing today? But there are definitely some positions in the company that like you just need to have someone who's had many years of experience doing that, or at least a couple of years of experience doing that, because day one, they need to do that well. And we don't have the infrastructure in place today to teach that person how to do that well.
Gotcha. Thanks a lot.
So Eitan, we're almost about time. Folks, feel free to ask any other questions if you do have them. I do want to ask you about, you've been there for a while. Can you talk about the changes from year one to now and where you see the company going over the next 1-2 years?
Well, a lot more people, much bigger offices. We do lunches today. When I started, there was no food. Changes. So I joined this company looking for one particular thing, and that one particular thing, I still find it every month. That thing is growth. And generally, when you join these companies, the growth shows up in a couple of dimensions. It's career growth, like you have exposure to different types of career opportunities that you now have at a bigger company because of all these issues that come with leveling and promos and perf and so on and so forth. At a smaller company, you don't have a team of dozens or hundreds of people above you trying to elbow you out of opportunity. So you can just go and do the work. And if anything, we want you to do the work because someone needs to do that work. The second dimension of growth is the financial growth that you're hoping to get if you're joining a startup sometimes by getting an equity stake and then seeing that stake grow. And obviously, there are a lot of things that could impact that, but it's very rewarding when it works out well. So for me, I think the two things that brought me here still keep me here today. And I hope that those two things continue to keep me here long term, which means that if I think I can continue to grow at this pace and I'm already like 4.5 years into this thing, then I'm expecting or I'm hoping for a lot of growth ahead. And it's really exciting to see those signs today in the company that point to that, that really exciting growth ahead. So it seems to be quite promising. Some of the things that I think we've done the same from when I started to today is the type of people that we hire. One thing that I think is really unique at Applied is that if you look at every person that we hire into the company today, you could pluck them and into the first 50 people. So replace them with anyone in the early team and you wouldn't tell a difference, as in the bar has stayed the same level of competence and excitement about startups and building what we're doing. So thankfully, the talent bar hasn't changed, which is what's allowed this company to be so successful. And I think remains my biggest fear over time as this thing continues to grow. How do we make sure that we continue to protect that bar? The things that have changed, well, as you have hundreds and hundreds of people starting to join and everyone works in office and everyone is supporting customers and you have all these different customer kind of areas of customers and product areas that you're working on, you just need to have a lot more systems in place. And I do think that Silicon Valley has a tendency to almost like over systematize things to a point that starts to erode that key advantage of speed that these companies have. But there is a unique balance that you have to strike between like not creating systems at all and creating some, basically like doing this overburden of process that starts to erode the business. And I think at Applied, I've been able to find that even median, and every year it just means more and more systems that allow us to do something cleanly in a much more organized way that's supporting the business but is not holding the business back, and really not like eroding the one thing that we do really well. So it's that's a change. Systems today are a lot more substantial than they were when I joined. Like I said, the offices are much bigger. I have to jog between buildings today. That reminds me of my days at Google, jogging from one cafeteria to the next because I wasn't happy with the pizza. And all the other standard things that come with much bigger teams and kind of managing that culture. Those things are different. The last thing that's different is some of the stuff that we're doing as a company today is stuff that when I joined, like if Castor told me back then that we'd be doing this, I would say, yeah, right. And it's actually happening. So the business has changed in fundamental ways sometimes, and the types of opportunities we've gone into. So that's been really exciting to see. But that's more about, different products we're building and different types of customers and use cases that we're supporting. And that's a kind of exciting growth you want to see with startups.
Great. Eitan, if you don't mind staying for one more minute, I've got a couple more questions here. Following up on an earlier question, I take it that Applied's hiring team is open to hiring people who show the promise of excelling in the role versus only hiring a person who ticks all the boxes. Is that true?
Exactly. I think I heard someone say this. I think it's like the old Nike CEO said that something along the lines of, it's much easier to hire people who are already ambitious than it is to hire someone who is not ambitious to try to make them ambitious on the job. And I think that applies to my philosophy when it comes to hiring on recruiting. I'd rather hire people who are already driven and want to do some excellent things here than to hire someone who ticks all the boxes, but just doesn't have that ambition and desire to do the things we want them to do.
Great. And the final two questions I'll combine. It's my questions here. If you are job hunting or advise one of your friends who are job hunting, what advice would you have? Not necessarily applying for applied intuition, but with the general job market today. And then the second thing is, how can a Xoogler community be helpful to you?
So what kind of advice would I give that's non-generic? I think there's just so much good generic advice on LinkedIn already. The non-generic thing, I would say people underestimate the power of networks. And I truly was one of those people for a very long time. And not until I got access to the applied network did I realize how strong those networks actually are. There have been many people that I've talked to, many candidates that I've talked to that we probably would have not have talked to unless we were connected to them through someone that knows someone who works here at Applied. And oftentimes those connections are not very obvious. In that, like, you look at your LinkedIn, you're like, I don't think I really know someone who works here. And you click around and you say, oh, I kind of know this person who might know this person to the second degree. Sending them, hey, do you know this person? Type of a message probably does not seem as odd to them as it does to you. And most likely they're going to be more willing to help you than you think than they would before you even send a message, is why you decide not to send a message. So leverage your network. And don't be afraid to really reach deeper into parts of your network that you didn't think that existed. Because I found that those networks really carry a lot of weight in Silicon Valley.
Great. And finally, how can a Xoogler community be helpful to you?
Invite me to the next event. I'd like to meet all of you in person. Chris, I always see those pictures on LinkedIn of you having nice dinners, and there's a lot of really good food around, and I'm always quite hungry when I see those. I don't know if it's FOMO, or I don't know if I use LinkedIn as a social media tool too much. But I'd love an invite. I'd love to show up.
Well, I'd love to invite you for dinner. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone, for joining, all the wonderful questions. For those who are job hunting, good luck. And I'll put Eitan's details here again. And I'm sure he'll love to hear from everyone who joined us live and maybe even watching this recording later. Thank you for helping the Xoogler community, especially during this time, Eitan. And thanks everyone for joining.
Definitely welcome. Good to see you all. See ya.
Thanks.